a lot of people, they reach out for things outside of themselves to try and feel okay, to try and feel safe in their body. And so those can be instant things like addictions. Like I had shopping addictions, I had heroin, marijuana, alcohol, cigarettes, anything I could do in the moment to not feel how I was feeling. I was just jumping to it because I didn't know how to escape how I was feeling in the moment. And so when I had those things, I felt good for a little bit. But what happens is you ruin your future peace.
Let's get to the root cause. Now, I know that term is thrown around a lot, right? Root cause. And in the world of functional medicine and holistic medicine, it's about going beyond the diagnosis or the surface, or really getting to the heart of things, the soul of what is holding you back and weighing you down. One of the things I love about HIListically Speaking is having guests come on this show who are experts in their field, but they share their own journeys, right? They're getting to their own root cause, their soul, and turning their own traumas into triumphs. Melissa Hiemann, she has been on her own awakening journey, and she started that back in 2014. And Melissa, you nearly failed out of school. You struggled with addictions, and I use that with an S on the end. And from those traumas, you learned how to heal your limiting beliefs. And now as a therapist, you help others do that every day. It is such a pleasure to have you here and being really open to talk about the root cause and how we can change those traumas into triumphs. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's a pleasure.
I want to really talk about the root cause of things because we haven't covered that topic, but also the fact that you have dealt with numerous addictions, not just one. I've had people come on the show talking about one thing, but it goes back to this book that you wrote called Natural High: Secrets to Overcoming Instant Gratification and then Finding the Inner Peace. So can we go there first? Because I think in this world of instant gratification, which we get that from the internet, we get that from different addictions, and the internet could be one of them now. How are you working with people in this area from your own experiences?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, from my own experience of overcoming my addictions and going on my own healing journey, as you mentioned, I came to realize I wasn't willing to sit in my body with how I was feeling. And so an outcome of that and a symptom of that is that either we jump up into our head, we try and intellectualize everything, and also we try to numb out how we're feeling, because essentially we're all trying to feel good, right? We're all trying to feel peaceful and happy and like, obviously. And so when we don't feel like that, and if we don't have the tools for several root cause reasons, if we don't have the tools to soothe ourselves, if we don't have the tools to feel our emotions, we don't feel safe to feel our emotions, then a lot of people, they reach out for things outside of themselves to try and feel okay, to try and feel safe in their body. And so those can be instant things like addictions. Like I had shopping addictions, I had heroin, marijuana, alcohol, cigarettes, anything I could do in the moment to not feel how I was feeling. I was just jumping to it because I didn't know how to escape how I was feeling in the moment. And so when I had those things, I felt good for a little bit, you know. But what happens is you ruin your future peace because I've just spent all my money. I've got a hangover the next day. I've taken away from my future self feeling okay because I wanted that instant gratification. I wanted to feel better now, and I didn't know. I didn't have the tools to know how to do that. And so that took me on a huge journey of then discovering how to heal, to feel my emotions, to be able to process them, to be able to not project it onto everyone else. And then, yeah, this whole journey took me through a lot of modalities and it took me to wanting to help others and give this really valuable information to others that are struggling or they have family members that are struggling. Yeah.
You mentioned you didn't want it to ruin your future peace. That hit me. You didn't want it to ruin your future peace. So there was a wake-up call, apparently. What was that about?
Oh my gosh, so the wake-up call. I was sitting in my little apartment on the beach and I had my sports card and I had my corporate job, and, you know, externally my life looked amazing. But in reality, I was in that little apartment because I had left my abusive relationship. I had been with someone else to help myself leave that relationship because I was so insecure. And I remember the day that I moved, the other guy was like, I can't do this. And I remember sitting there like so depressed and so sad, looking out at the water thinking, maybe I'm the lowest common denominator here. Like, why does this keep happening? And I had no awareness. I was just, blaming everyone else. I was at the whim of everyone else. And I was like, I think I need to get help. Like, and at that point, maybe I had seen a counselor once. I was all about just like being positive, making sure I look good on the outside and kind of just sucking it up and pushing it through. And part of that was I was probably looking at the water, drinking or whatever I was doing. And that's the first time I reached out for help, because I was like, again, that I probably have a part in this more than I realize, and maybe
well, that's the wake up call, right? I mean, part of that is the awareness. The first step to any change is awareness, and to be able to sit back and be like, perhaps this is something that I need to take responsibility for and stop blaming everything outside of self.
Exactly. That or
maybe
was
not.
Huge. Yeah.
Yeah, and it might maybe blame isn't the right word, because then we're just shaming ourselves, but just taking accountability and responsibility that you want to have a better future, right? The better future piece.
Yes.
That what's not working, maybe I'm part of not seeing what could be working. So how did that lead you to the work that you're doing now, and especially the root cause therapy method?
Yeah. So this would be like 2013, 2014 I'm talking about. So it was quite a while ago. But a friend had come over and he was like, you should contact this other guy. He's like into this life coaching or something now. I'm like, sure, I'll message him and have a chat, Anyway, I organized a session, and it wasn't just a chat. It was a deeply transformational regression, inner child healing experience. And I walked out just never the same person again, just becoming conscious of my subconscious, of my unconscious, of these patterns that were playing out in the background. Because honestly, I thought yesterday and the past was just in the past. I didn't realize it was still playing out in the now. I had no awareness of that. And so when I walked out of that session, I was like, wow. And I remember 2 weeks later, he's like, I'm running a course, I'm training people in it. And at the time I was in a sales job because I knew I wanted a business. I just didn't know what kind. I'm like, I need to learn sales. So I remember doing that course, and halfway through it hit me like a lightning bolt. I don't know, for those of you that you just found your purpose in the middle of something, and it literally felt like a lightning bolt went through my body. Yes. And I was like, oh, this is what I'm meant to be doing. I'm meant to be helping people get out of their own way. And I remember just healing like kind of one limiting belief, this fear of failure. And I had been working on a business in the background, like a jewelry business, for a year. And in healing that one belief, within 2 weeks, I had finished designing the product, got it in production, started like selling it like so quickly. And I'm like, oh my gosh, people just get in their own way. I was just getting in my own way. Like, I need to help people get out of their own way as well. Like, I grew up thinking that I was dumb, and I grew up thinking that I couldn't learn like other people, and there was something wrong with me. But actually I was just disassociated because I didn't feel safe growing up. There was quite a bit of trauma, and I took on the beliefs that people told me. So starting to shift them, starting to feel my emotions, starting to become aware of my behaviors that I was doing to try and escape how I was feeling. Like, it just opened up a whole new world for me. So I became certified as soon as I could, and I just did not stop studying. All of a sudden I was a bookworm. All of a sudden I cut out half the people in my life, and I'm just like surrounded by books and videos, and like, I'm like, give me more, and that's kind of where it started. Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing how we can look back on where we were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and think, I never thought in a million years I would be doing this. I think about that myself because my background being a journalist, but the traumas of being in journalism, especially when you're dealing with stories from 9/11 or just traumatic conversations, that moved me into this work, or just stuff that we've dealt with in life. And it's kind of like a pop, right? You're like, what am I doing? How can I leave this world better? Right? And then you're like, I never thought I'd be doing this. But if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans.
Yes. Yeah, totally. And I think that when you start to do any kind of therapy or like healing work, you do tend to expand outside of you just being in this survival, like looking after yourself. And as you expand, you're like, I want to serve people now. Like I have this huge yearning to like heal people and help as many people as I can. And I think it's beautiful, and I think it's amazing, whatever industry that we're in. You can just tell when people are really passionate and they're lit up and they're like on this path, you know? And so, yeah, I just love, but I particularly love our space as well, because I know like until I'm 100, I'll probably still find things to heal, but I'm forever expanding to be of service, you know? And then in turn, then we can pass that wisdom on to the people around us and onto our clients and the people that we're mentoring. And it's just a beautiful ripple effect.
And we don't own it. That's the thing. Like everything that we're learning, we don't own. So even if you're developing a course or a certification, or you're sharing a modality or an approach, or you're helping somebody else heal their traumas or upsets, we're not healing them. We're just guiding them. We're supporting them. But we don't own the process, you know?
Yes.
And we see a lot of people out there coaching and doing their thing. And there are many that are doing for the right reasons, and then there are some that are doing it for reasons that are not so beneficial of the person they are serving. So how do you differentiate yourself to make sure people know I'm coming from an authentic space?
Yeah, definitely. So that's something that I found out of my training. I kind of went into a session going, okay, obviously I want to make money and things like that. But I was like, I've been given a bunch of tools. What is the protocol here to actually run a really effective session so my clients are getting so much out of it? Because my first few sessions, I was like, I look back and I think that could have gone so much better. Like obviously we're always learning and things like that, but I had to structure it together myself. And so a part of my mission is to help as many people that are healers and therapists to do what they love full time. And a part of that was to go, what did I actually need when I got training to run the best sessions that I can? So my clients are walking away, they know they got something out of it, because this work can be really intangible. Like, I think I feel better, you know, and that can be like talk therapy, like, oh, I think I feel better, I think I feel worse, I don't know. I'm kind of walking around on the surface. And so what I did was I created this structure for not only for clients, but for the practitioners to feel really confident, to be able to run a really holistic session looking at the whole person, and then to be able to find the root cause through this structure. And then, so my past is like international business freight, like it was completely different. But what I got out of that was that I was really good at in terms of collecting data and looking at data changes. So what I did was I was like, as a practitioner and as a client, for you to see the exact changes that have happened over each session. So we call it the testing sheet, and we can actually see with the client's feedback, including muscle testing, including just how they're feeling and somatically what's coming up for them. We can see and manage the priorities of what we can work on in each session and what has actually been shifted. Like we actually have data from each session. And so we can actually show the client or tell the client and actually prioritize what's best to work on. What have we already worked through? And so that's kind of like the heart of root cause therapy. It's like making it a much more tangible process and looking at someone on all levels of consciousness, their conscious mind, their subconscious, their physical body, their mental body. And so yeah, that's not including the actual healing part of it, the actual going to the root cause, but that's such an important piece because I really want more professionalism in the space. I wanted people to know that they were safe with their practitioner. So like in my training, there's a lot of training around like that, how to manage your clients properly. Like I've had coaching sessions where they're just like, here's a calendar link, like there's no intake form, there's no like proper structure, like, oh yeah, like they might email you after, like, no, I want this to be a really safe container where we know I'm with someone that knows what they're doing. Yeah. We teach them method, but we also teach the business side of that to be really ethical and really and give that credibility.
I love that we're touching on this area of how to serve the practitioner and the coach. I mean, I was just telling you before we pressed record that I just finished doing a 2-day conference where I was MC and also presenting to healers, coaches, practitioners, because we're really the first ones to not think about taking care of ourselves. And one of the areas that I focus on a lot is secondary traumatic stress, because we think it's burnout. We think we're just overwhelmed. And rarely, when you're doing trauma work especially, you don't realize that you might be just like a sponge. You're taking in some of what you're hearing, some of what another person's trauma is, that primary duress, right? So we need more conversations like this, especially for practitioners, caregivers, coaches, therapists, doctors, that yes, you're in service to others, but how beautiful is it that you are taking care of yourself so that you can show up 100% for someone else and stop putting yourself on the back burner, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, so my partner and I in 2016 opened an outpatient mental health and addiction center. So we were not only dealing and helping people with their addictions, but also we would include their main family members or their partner, whoever was mainly their person. And so there was a lot of that, and we were working 12-hour days. And I remember this older lady that we had like info nutrition things, and she was like, you guys need to get massages, you guys need to slow down, like you can't, like people need you. And at the time I was like, whatever, I was like, I'm fine. And we were just pushing through and working crazy hours and managing all the staff and like obviously like dealing with inquiries and hearing all the stories and doing the healings where we're like, yeah, like you said, like secondary trauma, witnessing with the client the traumas that they went through, like, and some of them, you know, obviously horrific, and like kind of processing that and doing our own work at the same time. And yeah, and we got to the point after like 4.5 years where like, and after I had a child as well, after I had a baby, that changed my priority of like looking after myself and having time. And that's why we kind of shifted over to teaching online courses, not only being able to help more people around the world, but to actually look after ourselves a little bit, because I was getting to the point of burnout and I was getting sick a lot and I was dysregulated. Like sometimes I was getting really angry and really frustrated, and that's like not the approach that I want to have. I'm the center for healing, like we're meant to be peaceful, and I'm like, we need to practice what we preach here. So I so resonate with that. And yeah, part of like the training for our students is that energetic hygiene, you know, energetically, like before a session, grounding yourself, being able to hold space for them, an empathetic space, but not trying to take on what's coming up and letting the client process it. And like you said, being a guide. And then after a session, like little things like just doing your notes, just like getting it out so you're not thinking about it for days after, having your own little ritual to help clear the space. And it might be also little things like increasing your prices a little bit so you have less clients. So there's so many little elements that you can do to find that work-life balance, because the work is so important. Like the world needs us. So yeah, like you said, we do need to make sure that our cup is full, so then we don't have empathy burnout and things like that. So important.
Energetic hygiene. Energetic hygiene. That is a great way of putting it. So let's talk about some of those energetic hygiene approaches that we can do for those who are in the caregiving, practitioner, doctors, therapists. You know what? Anyone, because it doesn't matter what field you're in, you're always going to be hearing other people's stuff, right? Whether you do it for a living or not. So let's go through maybe like 5 things people can do. You just mentioned a couple. You mentioned saying yes to that massage, doing your notes right away, doing a little self-care, right? Doing the notes right away rather than waiting. Name a couple others. I'm curious.
Yeah, so other things would be, well, like I said, just increasing your prices a little bit, just so that, and not feeling bad about that. I mean, some people like to do a sliding scale, which means sometimes you charge certain demographics one price. But I found that I had to do that to honor my time. And that allowed me to have like a couple of hours in the day to chill and watch Netflix, or just
that's self-care.
That is self-care, especially for those of us that like, we're always like, I need you to be doing something with work. Like, no, you can be a normal person as well and just like binge a little bit, and that's fine, you know, on your favorite show. And the other things I would say is that and this is a word that gets thrown around so much, but boundaries, but just getting really clear on what works for you in terms of maybe there's only certain times of the day where you have the most energy, like the best energy. So for some people, it might be 4 p.m. onwards. So that's fine. Make your availability 4 p.m. onwards. And why I say boundaries, because some of us go, well, I just need to be available when clients need me. So I'm going to jump on it anytime, even if it doesn't suit I know like when I have good energy and not good energy. And so honoring that and holding to that and not being scared that they're not going to book with you, or not being scared that you're not going to make enough money because of that. If you really like own that and go, no, I only work Thursday, Friday and Saturday for consultations, whatever industry that you're in, try your best to make it suit how you work, because otherwise you will get burnt out and you will get resentful. And I think that does come through with whatever you're doing to the clients as well. So that's super important. And I did touch on ritual a little bit, and it depends how woo-woo you are, how spiritual you are. But, I've got stuff like this space clearing spray, that I just spray around me. I like to smell some essential oil to kind of ground me. Sometimes I'm like, I just need to go outside and just be near a tree or something. Like and just doing
grounding.
Grounding. And I would say the number one thing, and we do offer supervision in our courses, is that have someone that you can talk to about your sessions, to decompress and just to debrief. We were really lucky at the Healing Center because our offices were near each other, like, oh my God, I want to tell you about the session, blah, 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 blah. We were able to debrief, but it's not so easy, especially with client confidentiality. You don't want to just like tell your partner about your whole client's session.
Right.
So having someone that, whether they're a co-worker, like someone that is doing the same method as you, it could be someone that is your trainer or someone that you've hired as a mentor, someone that you can just go blah, 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 like this, or I got triggered, or, because we're going to get triggered as well, in sessions. And I think if you've got someone to bounce that off, that's so important for your own mental health and to get it out.
Everything you said is like so on point, because, we want to serve, we want to help people heal. And rarely are we thinking about what we can do, but also having that one person who's in a similar field that understands, rather than unloading it on your partner or unloading it on a friend who's kind of like, I don't know what you're talking about, and not breaking confidentiality, but doing it within the walls of your therapeutic center. Or if you work at a place, or you just know, like I have a mentor that I go to, I have my other practitioners, and having that just to be like, how do you feel about this? You need that. We all need that, So that's really important. I think those are really good tips. Especially when we're doing trauma work. And I want to talk to you briefly about that, because you do offer a trauma-informed certification, and there are a lot of certifications out there. So what makes your trauma-informed certification different from the copious other ones that are out there, the myriad of courses that call you trauma-informed? Yeah,
sure. So originally, as I was watching the industry change and a lot of coaches coming into the industry, and myself just having the awareness of blending therapy and coaching, I'm like, I have the sense that a lot of people are being held space for, but I feel like with coaching, there's not much awareness of trauma or reactions of trauma that people are having, or when a client is having a trauma response. And as a coach, often people trying to push them through that, which can cause, them to shut down or get depressed or become burnt out. And so as I watched the industry rapidly grow, I said to my partner and another trainer that we have, I'm like, you guys need to make a trauma-informed certificate, like for these coaches, like it's super important. So they did it. They recorded it and everything, and we started selling it. And I just had this feeling. I'm like, it's not. It was a very affordable price and everything. I'm like, it's not reaching enough people. It's not. And we're doing quite well with our other courses. I know you guys put a lot of effort into this and it's an incredible course, but do you mind making it free? And they were like, what? And I'm like, trust me, trust me, trust me. They're like, okay. I'm like, we need to make a positive ripple effect in the industry. And so they were like, okay, like they're just trusting me again. And it absolutely blew up. So to date, I think about 70,000 people have enrolled in this course, and literally, because I see the comments every day. So in our courses, you can do comments under each lesson and we're there and we're answering questions and things like that. And the testimonial is like, this is the best course on being trauma informed in the world. I've done a psychology degree. This is the best education that I've ever had. This is, and so people taking it that are either managers, parents, teachers. So it's not just for coaches, it's for anyone that is holding space to other people in any capacity. And so many people go through it for themselves as well. And so the main kind of points that are in there that people get out of it is understanding the nervous system, understanding the reactions of the nervous system, understanding how to hold space for someone by regulating yourself to be able to hold a safe space for whoever you're holding the space for. And to recognize when someone is having a trauma response and how to navigate that and how to help them around that. And I think, you know, one of my old friends, she was, and I'm talking 15 years ago, became a school teacher, and she would like complain about some kid that had ADHD, and she would be quite negative about it and be like, oh, I kind of would have a go at them. See, if they do this course, they would have a huge understanding of, oh, this is actually the reaction that they're having because of what they've been through. And these are the things that I can do to help this student to feel safer to learn and to hold and to be able to understand, okay, what can we adjust to make it a safer experience for them so they're not having these behavioral reactions. But it comes to anyone really, like, why do we have these behavioral reactions? What do they actually mean, you know? And yeah, sorry.
Well, I think it's amazing that you're offering it for free. And I just want to let folks know that I'm going to have that link in the notes of this podcast for Melissa's certification. This is a trauma-informed certification, or even the other short free educational courses that you do offer. We'll have that all in the podcast notes for the Center for Healing. That's so generous. And honestly, to be able to give that gift to people, even if they don't need the certification, the knowledge is really helpful, whether you were in the field of therapy or coaching. Like you said, teachers. I know plenty of lawyers and people that are in the legal that are hearing the stories from the narcissist. And the battle back and forth is traumatic in a lot of ways. And there are a lot of lawyers that are getting certifications in narcissism, trauma-informed approaches, just so they know how to NLP, you know, learning the language of what's coming at you. So all of this is so helpful. I mean, more education is great as long as it's authentic and comes with some kind of a backing. So
absolutely. Yeah. And the way that Matt and Ryan teach it is it's so digestible. Like, you don't have to have the technical knowledge of like the coaching industry or NLP or as a therapist. Like, it's so,
or science. Exactly.
It's like, oh my gosh, like everything that I've learned has clicked in, you know, and people enjoy watching it. And I'm just I'm so grateful for Matt and Ryan that they were like, yes, make this a free, because I truly believe if everyone becomes trauma informed, we are going to have a better world, because we're going to realize I'm raging and I'm angry because actually I'm feeling scared and dysregulated about this, because potentially I'm getting triggered because of this. So rather than attacking someone all of a sudden, we've had this huge awareness about ourselves, and we're able to calm down and then have a conversation with someone that we need to have a conversation with, rather than attacking each other, abusing each other, cutting each other off, like just basic human behavior, like having that understanding that all of us, I don't want to say all of us have experienced extreme trauma, but all of us have probably had painful experiences, are probably getting triggered now by each other and by circumstances that, if we're to have that awareness, understanding ourselves and others, it's going to be a much more peaceful, communicative society. I really believe that, yes.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And it's a question of learning how to respond instead of react. You know, because that scared creature that we have in the little amygdala up there, little Amy that gets scared and doesn't feel safe, if she's backed against a corner, it's all hell breaks loose, you know?
Yeah.
So it's definitely
100%.
understanding that. That's great. It's such a beautiful offering and just everything that you're doing. So before we actually wrap things up, because I know you've got things that you need to do, you got a full day ahead of you in Australia, I would love to play a little game with you real quick.
Sure.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw out a word and you just come back with the first word that comes to mind. Let's get things going with get you moving on your day ahead.
Okay.
You'll thank me for it later.
Sure.
All right. One word. Here we go. Transformational.
Root cause therapy.
Okay. Healing.
Inner child.
Peace.
Neutrality.
Practitioner.
Space holder.
Boundaries.
Self-care.
Addiction.
Self-soothing.
Energetic hygiene. I know it's 2 words, but I just really love that.
I'm going to say the word you already said, but boundaries.
Okay. And self-care. And that's 1 word because it's hyphenated.
Yes. Self-care. Self-love.
Beliefs.
Generalizations.
Good. Gratification.
I want to say painful emotions, which is the opposite of gratification, but I feel like
It's okay.
we're trying to gratify ourselves so we don't feel the painful emotions.
No, I'm going to give you 1 more word. I gotta keep going.
Okay.
1 more. Root cause.
The word that comes to mind is DNA, just because I've had a lot of clients with generational trauma at the moment.
Yeah, that's a big topic.
Yeah.
We didn't even really get into that. I know you mentioned it a little bit going back to the inner child, but
Yeah.
that generational trauma and holding space for ourselves with the ancestral trauma, what would you say to those tuning in about being able to process that and be open to the idea of generational trauma?
So you can look at the cherry blossom study. There's a study that's been done on how generational trauma can get passed down, not only by us hearing stories that have happened to our ancestors, but actually we live out the symptoms in our DNA. So some people will have symptoms and behaviors that they don't understand why they're having them, and it doesn't make sense, their reactions that they're having to the life that they've had. And sometimes the trauma has been passed down generationally. And so I have taken people into regression, and I myself have gone into regression where I was in my grandmother where she couldn't feed her kids and my mum was only little, and I felt how she felt, and I saw the rice on the table and that's all she had for them. This is in Sri Lanka in a village. And the behaviors that I had previous to understanding that was like, I would hate to go to a restaurant. I always looked at the food and I always used to think there's not enough food. I can't eat this restaurant food. They're wasting so much food. There's not enough food. I couldn't go to a supermarket. I had all these weird behaviors that were unexplainable. But once I went to that and healed that shifted all of that. And now I'm happy to go to a restaurant and I believe there's an abundance of food. And so, yes, it's very... those of us that are willing to do the work, we're often healing generations of trauma from both sides, our mother and father's ancestry, you know, so it's not easy.
I remember when I first went through my trauma-informed certification, I really opened up and I was like, whoa, and I don't know where it came from. It just it was like I just vomited all of this generational trauma and the feeling that I had in my body that I had not felt before. And I remember calling my mom after saying, it ends now. Like, it ends today. And I had already been doing this work for a while, but something hit me hard with that program where I went really deep into the generational trauma. And I was like, oh no, like it ends today. It ends here with this lineage right here. And that's really an awareness. It's stepping into the tension of the unknown and realizing you have a couple choices. You can go forward, right? You can retreat and nothing changes as nothing changes. You can try to go around it without dealing with it, or try to go over it, but you'll get kicked back. So it's really just like diving through it,
100%. Yeah.
Wow. Good stuff. Melissa, thank you so much for being here. And I want to give you a moment because we got off track after we got on a good track, but we changed gears after the rapid fire game. I'm curious, do you have any final words that you'd like to share with those tuning in?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that if anything, start to feel into your body more, into your feelings, and stop intellectualizing them so much. And it's safe to feel your negative emotions, and they do go. If you fully feel them and breathe into them, they do go after 60 to 90 seconds. And I think that would save so many people's lives just by doing that. Your relationships, your health, the way you look after yourself, that's a really great first step to take.
Yeah. Like, is it a bad day or is it just a bad 5 minutes?
Exactly.
Right? We tend to just like catastrophize everything to make it like life is horrible. And it's like, is life horrible, or is it really just like in this moment right now you're really ticked off, right?
Yes.
But that's great. Just give yourself a chance to self-regulate, We have that power. And it's beautiful when we know we have it, because then we're just more empowered.
Definitely.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. It's been my honor to be on. Thank you so much.
Mine as well. All right. I want you to take advantage of Melissa's trauma-informed certification and courses. She's offering a lot of free resources that you can put in your toolbox, that brain candy jar that you got. I'll add that in the podcast notes of this episode, along with her book, Natural High: Secrets to Overcoming Instant Gratification and Finding Inner Peace. Plus, more on her root cause therapy and the Center for Healing. And we talked a lot about ways that you can be kind to your mind during this conversation, finding ways to heal the healer in you. One way that you can do that is with havening techniques. If you want to learn more about havening and how it can change your brain, I dropped a link in the podcast notes as well on ways to connect with me. Remember to give this podcast and this episode a little love. Just by leaving a rating or review, you are making a difference wherever you are tuning in. We are on all podcast platforms, including Apple, Spotify, and even YouTube. I love hearing from you week after week, and I appreciate all your shares. HIListically Speaking is edited by Two Market Media, with music by Lipbone Redding, and supported by you. So thank you. I appreciate you every day. I know there is a lot of podcasts that are out there. You're choosing to join me every week. It is a gift to have you here, and I am truly grateful. I love you. I believe in you, and I will see you next week.
I know the girl with my